Hey guys, so this is just going to be a kind of J-style discussion video on how I recognize Megaminx PLL, full Megaminx PLL that is. I think that the way I recognize these cases is pretty intuitive and reasonably obvious, but a lot of people seem to message me about this, so I figured I could make a video and sort of clear it up. Sorry for the unedited nature of this. It'd be nice to make like a slick video, like well edited, explaining these concepts, but like I lack motivation, so this is what you get. I guess the way that I recognize cases is kind of unique because I don't AUF for almost any cases. There are two, and they're mirrors that I will AUF for to recognize them, but the other 147 I don't AUF for, which I think is better than AUFing to recognize them, and I'll explain why just now. So let's set up a case for example's sake. My turning is bad. I haven't really cubed in a while. Anyway, so like a case like this, suppose it's just some random AUF like here or something. A lot of people, they AUF to recognize it. So what that means is they look at this case, they see the blocks immediately is what they see, and then they might have a rule for themselves, right? This is sort of varies from person to person, but suppose their rule is I always AUF that this block here is solved, right? So they'll see this case, they'll see these two blocks, they'll do a U. Having done that, they'll then look to see what other pieces are solved and maybe some other things. I don't do this, and it does vary between people, but something they might see is, I see this corner solved, I see, I don't know, this sticker matches that one, and maybe that'll be enough information to tell them what it is, what case it is. Maybe they also look for other stickers. I don't know. I think that this isn't great because, so they recognize it, they have to AUF to recognize it, right? And then they, AUF and do the case. So what I would do for that exact same case, let's just set it up. What was the angle? It's like this. So what I would do, instead of AUFing to recognize it, is I just look at it, look for some like patterns that I'm going to explain later. I'd just look at it, look for those patterns, figure out which case it is, and then AUF and do the case, and it'll be solved. Oh god, my turning is really bad. Anyway, so I think that my system is better because, for most cases it's better, because if you can get the recognition time down faster than the time it takes someone to AUF and then recognize, then my recognition system will be better. And I think most of the time you can. So I guess the downside of my system is that it's a little complicated to start out with. So the things I look for, the patterns I look for, they're harder to see than just like solved pieces, right? So if you AUF to recognize cases, then you can AUF and see which pieces are solved. That's pretty easy to spot, and then you can just tell which case it is based on that. So that's easy, but I think slower in the long run than my system. My system's hard, but I think faster in the long run. So, with that said, let's get into it. I'll be describing cases based on how they're categorized in my document. If you haven't seen my document, it'll be linked in the description. I made it at the start of this year. It's, I think, a better system for grouping Megaminx PLLs than the old system, which was popular for a while. I won't get into why it's better for now, but the general consensus is, it's better. The document also contains all my algs, so, learn from it. It's, I think it's the best, static resource for learning Megaminx PLL. A video series might be better for some people, but, my document has the best algs for now. So anyway, what do I look for when recognizing cases? I guess it's kind of a hierarchy of things I look for, with obvious, easy to see things being the first things that I would notice, and if I don't notice that, then there's other things that I sort of have as, I guess, second on the hierarchy, and then if I don't see those, then it kind of goes down. So to start with, the first thing that I look for is just blocks, right? This is something you'll be super familiar with from 3x3. Let's say JPerm, for example, right? this is a JPerm on Megaminx. And you know what blocks are, right? Just adjacent pieces that are solved relative to each other. So like this block, and this block, and this block. And based on the shapes and positions of those blocks, I can tell that this is a JPerm, and I can tell what angle it is. And I see that, I do the case, and it's solved. Blocks are usually enough to tell you what set a case belongs to. So like, is it an A perm, is it a B perm, is it a C perm? Sometimes they won't, sometimes you'll need additional information, but they'll usually be enough to tell you which set it is. Sometimes it'll be enough to tell you also the exact case, like there with a JPerm, the blocks were enough. With other cases like D perms, so this is a D perm, right? The D perms are the cases with a 1x3 bar and a 2x2, I guess, if you use 3x3 terms, like this block here, right? So this bar and this block. With the way that this case works, the block is here, the bar can either be here or here. You can't really have it be here, that's not a valid PLL on Megaminx. Yeah, so the bar can be here or the bar can be here. Those are two different cases, and yeah, so the blocks are enough to tell you the case. So looking at this, I just see the blocks, and then I know which case it is, and I know the angle, and I can just execute it. Bad execution. Anyway, that's blocks. Blocks are the easiest thing to see. They're something everyone will see. Pretty obvious. The next thing I'd look for, again, something pretty obvious you'll be familiar with, is headlights. So just to demonstrate this, if you don't know what headlights are, they're when two adjacent corners have the same color, or when two adjacent corner stickers have the same color shown. So for this case, it has headlights on every side. I call this H2. The name isn't important. The important thing is, yeah, headlights on every side. Oh wait, shit, sorry. So, as an example of how I use these headlights to tell which case is which, I'll just set something up. Is that and this. So these are A perms, right? A1. They look like 3x3 A perms. There's a block and headlights, right? Block and headlights. These two cases have the same block in the same place, right? It's this block here, and block there. The way you differentiate them is the position of the headlights. So again, this is a 3x3 thing. This is something you should be familiar with. So I just look at it. I see if the headlights are on the left, it's this case. If the headlights are on the right, it's that case. That's enough to tell me exactly which case it is, if it's an A perm. Yeah, so I'll just solve that. Okay, so after headlights, I guess we'll move on to looking for checkerboards. So if the headlights are the same, and if the blocks are the same and the headlights are the same, then I might look for checkerboards after that. So checkerboards so checkerboard, again, this is the retro thing, but this is where it starts to get a little more Megaminx specific, and we'll get into that in a second. But basically checkerboards are this. They're two colors, they're stickers that alternate between two colors, right? So here it's green, pink, green, pink, green, pink. This is the biggest checkerboard you can have, is 6 stickers in a row, and the way I recognize this case is there's this block, all the corners are solved, and there's these massive checkerboards, right? This is Z1. Yeah, so that's checkerboards. I guess the an application of how I'd use this to recognize. Okay, so let's set this up. So we just looked at A perms, A1 perms specifically. What we have here is A2 perms, and this is where it gets kind of Megaminx specific. So looking at this, you might not initially think there are checkerboards on here at all, but the way I consider it is that there are. Here, the checkerboard is on the top left. It's cream, pink, cream. So it's this little 3-sticker checkerboard. So we were dealing with a 6-sticker before with that Z2 case. Here it's just a 3-sticker checkerboard. And I look at it, I see the blocks, that tells me that it's A2. I see this checkerboard, that tells me that it's A2 plus, I think. I don't actually know my system that well. I didn't like learn from it, so look at my doc if you want to know the actual names. I think it's A2+. Anyway, if the blocks on the left is this case, if the blocks on, sorry, not the block, the checkerboard. If the checkerboard's on the right, it's this case. Yeah, so that will usually be enough. I think for like over 50% of cases, blocks, headlights, and checkerboards will be enough to tell you exactly which case it is, like what set it is and which case it is within that set. The next thing is going to be, I guess this is one that you won't know, or you won't know my name for it anyway. This is something that I call anti-checkerboards, which is a dumb name. I've heard it called anti-headlights, I've heard it called like EPERM checkerboards. I'll set it up and explain it to you. So this is anti-checkerboards. This is anti-checkerboards on every side. Basically, it's when the three stickers, the three like last layer row stickers of a given color are the edge stickers in the middle, and the corner stickers are facing outwards, right here. So the reason I've heard it called like EPERM checkerboards is because if we shall set up on a Megaminx, if we hide the sticker, it looks like a 3x3 EPERM, right, this case. And it is. This is the case that I call E1. And yeah, so this is how you recognize it on 3x3, is that these two corners have to swap with each other, these two corners have to swap with each other. It's an EPERM. And an EPERM has two of these anti-checkerboards, one on the right and one on the left. And that's how I recognize it. It's E1. E2, on the other hand, I'll just set it up. E2 is this case. So it has an anti-checkerboard again, but it's not. There aren't two of them, like here and here. There's just this one, which is the cream one, just here, 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 here. Yeah. So that's how I recognize like between E1 and E2. And anti-checkerboards, they're less noticeable than any of the things I've described so far, but they will, together with everything else, almost always be enough to distinguish what the case is. And the case that I showed at the start of this video, if you haven't realized by now, which most of you probably haven't, anyway, I'll move on. The case that I showed at the start of this video to showcase like my recognition system and why I think it's better, I use anti-checkerboards to recognize that. So just set it up. That took way too long to set up. Yeah, so this is the case that I showed at the start of the video, and the way that I recognize it is this thing here: blue, cream, pink, cream, pink. This is a big anti-checkerboard thing. So yeah, it's not limited to just being like 3 pieces. It can sort of extend to more pieces, like I saw with that. I showed you with this case here. It can be every piece in the last layer, maybe. For X1, that is. That's this case, X1. Yeah, so the way that I recognize this case is I see, okay, there's that block, that means that it's a C, that means that it belongs to the C set, it's a C perm, and then I see this anti-checkerboard here, this sort of 5-piece anti-checkerboard, and that's enough to tell me which case it is. So, sorry, that was a bad execution of the alg. The things that I've discussed so far, blocks, headlights, checkerboards, anti-checkerboards, those are enough to figure out exactly which case it is for like almost all cases. I'd say there's like less than a dozen where those like 4 things aren't enough to figure it out. If you're trying to figure out how to recognize cases, and 2 cases seem to have the same blocks, the same headlights, the same checkerboards, or like no checkerboards or whatever, the same anti-checkerboards or no anti-checkerboards, then the way that I distinguish between those 2 cases is I find 2 stickers that are the same color on one of the cases and different colors on the other case. And then when it comes up in a solve, I check to see if those two stickers are the same or different. So, I guess as an example of this is S1 and S4. So this case here is S1 and S4. Right here. So, these two cases look very similar. They have the same blocks, right? This 2x1, this 2x1, this 2x1, this 2x1, right? Same blocks and same locations. That tells me it's an S-perm. Neither one of these cases has headlights, neither one of these cases has checkerboards or anti-checkerboards. Not even like a little three-piece checkerboard like I was talking about before. So, it's hard to distinguish between these two cases. The way that I do it is, for these two cases, I've just created this kind of rule for myself. If I get this in a solve, I check this sticker here, this green one, and this sticker here, this green one. If they match, then I know that it's S1. I know the case is S1. If they don't match, like here, it's cream and green, then I know that it's S4. So yeah, whenever this case comes up, I check those two stickers. And there are other cases that also have the same thing, where you have to just check two stickers. And yeah, I think everyone should just come up with these little rules for themselves, because I guess different stickers will stand out to different people, different amounts. But yeah, just like set up the two cases side by side, figure out two stickers that are the same on one case and different on the other case, and then when that comes up in a solve, look at those stickers, and if they're the same or different, we'll tell you which case it is. So, that's how I recognize every PLL. There's other things I think are worth talking about. So, to start off with, not to start off with, but like the first thing that I think is worth talking about is Knobloch cases. So, Knobloch cases are the L, K, and X sets, right? So the X cases are the cases that just have no blocks and no headlights. The K cases are the cases that are 5-corner CPLL, right? An example of this is this. So no blocks and no headlights as well. And then the L cases are the cases that have no blocks, but they do have headlights. They'll have two opposite sets of headlights. So the reason that this is worth bringing up is because the K cases, they can look like L cases or they can look like X cases. What I mean by that, this is a K case, but it doesn't have any blocks or headlights. It looks like an X case for all intents and purposes, especially if it's AUF'd wrong. Like this, you immediately, like looking at it, you can't necessarily tell that it's a CPLL, so you can't tell that it belongs to the K set. So if you're doing AUF recognition, so AUFless recognition, like my recognition, then you have to treat this, for the purposes of recognition, as if it is an X case. So the way that I would recognize this is I'd just look at it and I'd see this checkerboard here, this cream, blue, cream one, and this checkerboard over here, this green, pink, green one. And based on that, I know which case it is. I know that it's that it's K. I want to say K1. I could be wrong. Might be K2. Basically, yeah, that'll tell me which case it is. And I guess the other sort of counterexample to this is this case here, right? So this is what I was talking about before, with no blocks and two opposite sets of headlights. However, this isn't an L case, which has those qualities. This is a K case, because it's actually 5-corner CPLL. But you won't necessarily be able to tell that it's 5-corner CPLL, so you have to recognize it based on the headlights and checkerboards and anti-checkerboards and so on and so forth. So what I would look for to recognize this case, or just the thing that I see to recognize its case, is here, green, orange, green, this little checkerboard, and here, cream, blue, that checkerboard. And that's enough information to tell me that it's a K case and which K case it is. God, my execution's really bad right now. My hands are cold. Yeah, so that is the Knobloch cases. Something that I think is worth bringing up is that Knobloch cases are some of the cases where I'm not actually 100% sure that my recognition system is worth it. I think for those cases, the recognition is so difficult, especially the X cases and the K cases that look like X cases. The recognition is so difficult that I'm not sure that it's better than AUFing to recognize. I think it probably is, otherwise I wouldn't recognize like that, but I'm not sure. I know Juan Pablo AUFs for those cases, the Knobloch cases, and like no other cases, as far as I'm aware. I don't AUF for those cases. So I guess we're kind of split. I don't actually have enough data to tell like definitively one of these systems is better for those cases. But yeah, if you're really struggling with like AUFless recognition for Knobloch cases, it's not the worst thing in the world to just AUF for them. Like, it's fine. People do it. Juan Pablo does it, and he has a world record. So yeah, for Knobloch cases, it's okay to AUF, I think. The other cases that it's okay to AUF for are N poems. So I'll set one up just now. Actually, I'll set two of them up. So these are the cases that I said at the start of the video that I do AUF for. So looking at these, you can probably see why they're called N poems. They have just like blocks everywhere, like on through our 3 N poems. So the one on the left that I have is N2. The one on the right is N1. N2 is an interesting case because it has 5-way rotational symmetry. So whichever way that it's AUF'd, there'll always be exactly one of these blocks solved. So here is the cream one, here is the orange one, here is the pink one, so on and so forth. So if you get an N poem and there isn't exactly one of these solved, you know that it can't be N2, it has to be N1. Like here, for example, I see this block is solved, this block is solved, that tells me that it's N1, not N2. So based on that, I then have a check that I use to tell the angle of it, which is based on just matching stickers, like I was talking about with the cases that you need that for, kind of the exception cases. Yeah, so I can tell the angle. But sometimes you'll get it like this, where there's no blocks matching, and that again tells you that it's in N1 case, like that, like this. 2 of them are matching, so it's an N1. So 4 out of the 5 AUFs, you'll be able to tell that it's N1. However, the 5th one, like this, you can't tell that it's N1, because for both of these cases, there's 1 block matching, right? So when I look at this, I can't immediately, just like, instantly tell if it's an N1 or an N2. The way that I do this is with sticker matching, like I was talking about with the exception cases. So you'll see on N2, this sticker here and this sticker here, they match. So when I see that there's 1 block solved, I'll look at those 2 stickers. If they match, it's N2, I know the case, and if they don't match, then it's N1, and I know the case, and I also know the angle. Yeah, so that's how I recognize the N cases. So I do AUF for them some of the time. Actually, okay, so what I just said, I don't have to AUF to recognize the case, because I use sticker matching or just the fact that there's 1 block or no block solved. But if it's like this, for example, I think it's faster to just do a U move and then do another U move if no boxes are matching. And based on what happens after the U move, that'll tell you the angle. This is kind of complicated to explain. Basically, the angle for my main alg for this case is from here, right? So if it's like this, or if it's like this, and I do a U move, I see there's no blocks matching, I know I can immediately just rotate here and do the alg. If it's like this and I do the U AUF and these 2 blocks become matching, then I know that is just from this angle. So the AUF conveys information, which I think is faster than looking for sticker matching. It's kind of a little complicated to explain why that's the case. I realize now. I thought it was simpler. But yeah, if you're kind of confused about that, just like PM me or something. I can explain that. But yeah, so that's how I recognize every case. And I think if you're learning Megaminx PLL, you should just, learn a set, go through the set, see, okay, which cases have different blocks, which cases have different headlights, which cases have different checkerboards, which cases have different anti-checkerboards, and if all that fails, which cases still look the same to me, and then you'd go through those on a case-by-case basis and just, for those pairs of cases that look the same, find stickers that match or don't match based on the case. Yeah, so that's basically my recognition system. I realize this is like a half-hour video basically, so it might seem pretty daunting. I think most, like 90% of the stuff that I explain in this video is common sense to a lot of people. The last like 10%, hopefully it's helpful. Yeah, I think just having a go with it and trying to sort of apply these concepts, you'll figure everything out pretty easily, and it is pretty intuitive. And the recognition system for most cases is very, very fast. Like for that case that I set up at the start of the video, I can just look at this and instantly just see that. I know which case it is. So with practice, yeah, I think this is better than AUFing to recognize. Hopefully you'll agree, hopefully you'll learn it. Hopefully you just learn PLL in general if you want to. My document will be linked in the description. Yeah, learn it. It'll make you fast. That's addressed to you, Felix. Yeah, anyway, that's me for now. See ya.